This is the host of The Simpsons Did It podcast, here to talk to you about Anchor. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. 1, it's free. 2, there's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. You can even make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast, all in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor:/FM to get started. And we're back with another episode of The Simpsons Did It. They just keep doing it, don't they?
They're never going to stop.
They are never going to stop. I'm your host, Steven Sklansky.
And I am your co-host, Robert Skolansky.
Awesome. We made it to episode 3.
Woo!
Episode
3.
How many podcasts make it to episode 3? I feel like a lot of podcasts.
Probably a lot. It's. I think it's the double-digit mark that probably a good indicator.
Yeah, you get kind of lazy and you're like, I don't want to record anymore. Or we're going on hiatus. We're gonna take 4th of July off for 3 months and then come back. No. So we're on episode 3. Hopefully you guys have had a chance to listen to episode 1 and 2. But I'll let you guys know about how we run the episode here. So we're going to let you know the name of the episode, when it aired, give you a little quick recap, chalkboard and couch gags, and then we're going to go chronologically through the episode to let you know what we liked, didn't like, quotes, fun facts, and then we close it out with a rating for the episode, and finally, a character profile. So this week we delve into Season 1, Episode 3, Homer's Odyssey, which aired January 21st, 1990.
So 1 week after episode 2, there was no break this time.
No breaks, so which is good. We got a little flow going. So the recap of this episode: after getting fired from his job at the power plant, Homer becomes the voice of safety in Springfield. Eventually, that brings him to go head to head with the power plant he once worked at. So this is just such an odd episode. Now that you know that the Christmas episode was not supposed to be the first episode,
yeah,
it does make it a little bit harder to swallow.
Right.
So the couch gag for the episode, the chalkboard gag. I will not skateboard in the halls, which as soon as he's done writing the last sentence,
skateboards in the halls.
He skateboards through the halls.
By the way, quick note on the chalkboard gag. I just remembered in later episodes, and maybe it was in these last 2, the reason he leaves the room is because the bell goes off.
Yeah, the bell rings. Yep.
Okay. I'm not okay. So it did happen.
Which was that meant for him? Because I feel like you stayed after school to write on the chalkboard, not during school to write on the chalkboard.
Well, maybe there's like a final bell for like kids in detention.
Yeah, the detention bell.
Yeah. I think that actually might be a thing, but I'm not 100% sure. I've only ever been in detention once in my life, which was absolute crap, but that's a story for a different day. But I don't remember there being a bell. I just remember, well, granted, I served it in the morning before school started. So, I mean, I don't know. Any kids out there that, or any people out there who spent time in detention, is there a detention bell?
Yes. Any Bart Simpsons out there, let us know if there's a detention bell. All right. So the couch gag. But actually, before we get to the couch gag, I just wanted to point out that as a father, I noticed that Maggie drives in the front seat of the car.
Yes.
Instead of rear facing in the back of the car.
Don't forget, again, this is 1990. I'm pretty sure. Now, granted, even in 1990, I'm pretty sure the safety standards were kids in the back, not the front. But I don't think the rear-facing safety standard, I don't know how old that is. I'm not a parent myself, so I don't really know. But, I mean, I feel like once we hit like the age of like 5 or 6, our parents allowed us to drive up front every once in a while.
But Maggie's a baby. She barely walks. I mean, she's got to be younger than 1 year old.
No. She walks because remember in the Christmas episode, Marge's letter says Maggie's walking on her own. She keeps falling down, but she's walking on her own.
Okay, so maybe she's 1.5. She still should be in the back seat.
I don't disagree.
She can have a steering wheel and honk the horn, but she should be in the back. Okay.
I feel like they did it solely because of a character introduction and not necessarily ignoring safety rules. I don't think they're like, oh man, if she's not in front, you're not going to see her. So what's the point? I think it's just more character introduction than anything.
What would have been funnier, though, after we're done talking about this episode, it kind of goes full circle. After Homer becomes a safety inspector, that's when Maggie should have moved to the back seat.
Ah, yes.
Because now he knows about safety. Okay, anyway, so now we're getting to the couch gag. The couch collapses after the Simpsons sit on it. It's kind of like the couch wasn't big enough for all 5 of them at that point, and then it just fell apart.
I feel like, though, there's been other couch gags where the couch, like, falls apart somehow.
But, yeah, we'll check into that.
Yeah.
We'll see we'll keep a tally. How many times the couch falls apart when the Simpsons sit on it?
Yeah.
All right. So, next up, we got the Simpsons school trip starting off. First they went to the prison. That didn't go well. Bart claims that he didn't unlock that door.
Yeah.
I really don't know why kids would be going to a prison for a field trip.
Maybe to see how the justice system works. I mean, in elementary school seems a little young to me, but also to note, if you look at the left side of the screen, you'll notice for the first time the Alberto tag graffiti at the school. In the front of the school, it says Alberto.
Yep.
That's great.
And then later in the episode, we'll learn what Alberto looks like.
Yes.
So we got, so they got, to go off to the Springfield nuclear power plant.
Yep.
But before they hop on the bus, Bart also talks to Otto and asks Otto if he got any new tattoos. And he shows them, and Bart's like, "Oh, cool, man. I can't wait to get one." He's like, "You got to be 14. So according to Otto, the Springfield's age of consent for tattoos is 14. Where we learned in the first episode,
he's not.
It's got to be 21.
So,
or maybe it is 14. So the tattoo artist only asked Bart how old he was.
Correct.
He never said you had to be 21.
So, and here's the other thing with tattoos. I believe, at least in the state of Wisconsin, it might be different in Minnesota. I think you can get a tattoo at the age of 16 with parental consent up until 21. And I think once you hit 21, you don't need consent. I'm not 100% sure. I have plenty of friends with tattoos. I'm pretty sure up until the age of 21, you need consent, at least here in Wisconsin. If I'm wrong, let me know after we once we've posted the episode. But I feel like that's it. I'm not going to look it up. It just doesn't really something to me that I personally don't really care because I don't have any tattoos. If I did, I'd probably know the real answer. So educate me, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm all for it.
According to this, no tattooing, branding, or body piercing of minors under the age of 14. Yeah. So it seems like
once you hit 15.
Yeah, once you hit 14, you could get a tattoo.
So maybe that's what Otto was referring to, is not until you're 14, but he still needs an adult's consent, because I think you still need consent to get a tattoo if you're under a certain age. Till
you're 21.
Okay, so it is 21.
Well, actually, no. Minors age 14 to 18 need written consent.
Oh, so
Bart would just forge a signature from Homer and go and get one anyways.
But as we learned in Bart the Genius, Homer writes like a child, so
exactly.
You never know. It could be, Bart could lie to Homer saying he needs something signed. It's really for a tattoo, and Homer will sign it and look like a kid anyways.
Exactly. So, all right. So he gets on the bus and he's, being very rowdy like usual, but not really. I think Sherry and Terry and Wendell are kind of egging him on to.
Well, Wendell doesn't say anything. Wendell just doesn't want to be touched so he doesn't throw up, because as I mentioned, he throws up on every school trip. So I think it was more Sherry and Terry.
Maybe he should bus.
Yeah, probably not. And I see you asked a question about why does the school bus have a microphone?
Yes.
So here's the thing. To answer that question, a lot of school buses, the school bus drivers have, like a radio microphone that like so you could hear in the back of the bus. So I think that was the whole point of having the microphone, so the kids could hear on the back of the bus. I'm assuming it's easier to draw a microphone than it is. Oh, maybe it would be easier to draw a square, but maybe they just went with a microphone. I have been on at least like the nicer variety of buses that have a microphone.
Yeah, but those are like coach buses.
Yeah, well, maybe this is an old coach bus they refurbished to be a school bus.
I don't know. I feel like Otto would drive the most beaten down school bus Springfield has to offer.
Why? Because they don't trust him to drive?
Exactly. Okay,
Uh,
now we are jumping out slightly ahead. I guess where we put this in the title of the
oh,
episode is
yeah.
Homer's Odyssey. It's based off of Homer's the poet, the Odyssey.
Correct.
It's kind of funny because this didn't necessarily have the Iliad Odyssey
Yeah.
feel to it, but Homer does go on a journey of discovery.
Correct.
So like you wrote, Alberto is on the school.
Yeah.
Automan's first appearance, but also once we get to the nuclear power plant and they're on their field trip, we get the first appearance of Smilin' Joe Fusion.
Yep. Fission, not fusion.
Fission. Sorry.
And also, there's a lot of first appearances in this episode. This is also the first appearance of Sherry and Terry as well, as they egg Bart on in the school bus. And so I have a question. So Mrs. Krabappel told Bart to settle down or else she'd make him sing. Doesn't that defeat the purpose of Bart settling down? Because as you see, Sherry and Terry antagonize him enough where Mrs. Krabappel's like, all right, you're going to sing. I think it's meant to humiliate him, but as you see, he's enjoying himself and he's being rambunctious. So what's the point of making him sing?
I don't know.
And also the song he does sing is called John Henry Was a Steel Driving Man.
Well, Mrs. Krabappel picked that song, not him.
Correct. But he enjoyed singing it.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
So it feels like the punishment did not fit the crime. And from my experience, well, not necessarily from my experience, but from watching like other TV shows and maybe in real life, if you're a bad behaved kid on a bus, the teacher makes you sit next to them.
Yeah, up in the front of the bus.
So I think they missed the mark on that.
Yeah. All right. So they get to the nuclear power plant and they're on the tour. And the first thing we notice is a African-American Smithers.
So why is Mr. Smithers brown? So Mr. Smithers is brown because it was a mistake. He was never supposed to be meant as an African-American. The animators, the people who colored Mr. Smithers just got it wrong. They didn't want to portray an African-American as subservient to a white rich guy for clear and obvious reasons. I think that was a smart move. And in a later episode, we learned that they write it off as Smithers just got really tan.
He went on vacation.
He went on vacation, but they definitely made the right choice of not having, and also, I mean, all the characters are yellow, so it'd be, I mean, you did get Apu, who is, you know, Indian and his wife and his kids, and I think there's a couple other people on the show who are African American, but I think for the most part they made the right decision.
Well, even the Asian cast characters are yellow.
Yeah, well, so it's
okay,
like
that kind of makes sense.
So, but like they definitely made the right choice of correcting it for later episodes, and you know, writing it off in another episode saying you got a tan. Also, Mr. Smithers' first appearance, but you did hear him in these Christmas episodes saying there wouldn't be a Christmas bonus.
No, it was an announcement from our friend and mentor or something, Mr. Burns.
Oh, Bruce, oh, you're right. But Mr. Smithers did deliver the message. So.
No, Mr. Burns delivered the message.
That's.
Rewatch the episode. I'm right. Yeah. Don't worry about it. Okay. So next up, in the nuclear safety video, the nuclear waste, Mr. Joe Fusion, Smiling Joe Fission, sweeps the nuclear waste under the rug. And
Yeah.
then one creeps out and runs away. So obviously, hidden nuclear waste does not stay hidden for millions of years, like previously mentioned. It does.
Because as we see, as the kids are walking through the power plant after the video presentation, we get our first appearance of probably one of my favorite side characters that doesn't really do anything, is Blinky, the three-eyed fish.
Yes, he's just floating around in the ocean, in the pond outside.
Yep.
Because Smithers says that the water, the unharmed water, the water from the plant gets put
transferred
right
back to the water
in the water. Yeah, and everyone drinks. I'm surprised more people in town don't have extra arms and eyes.
Well, I think in an episode they do talk about how the town has their own water reserve that is not part of the stream, but I could be wrong. Yeah. That'll be a pin. Put a pin in that one.
So it's kind of funny. So you mentioned that Sherry and Terry's dad is Homer's boss, which he is, but obviously that only lasts one episode because then he becomes the safety inspector. And I learned this the other day that I think it was Carl. Carl is technically Homer's supervisor.
Yes.
Which is kind of funny because you never really see Lenny or Carl doing actual work. But I guess as a supervisor, you don't have to do work. Homer does the work.
Yeah. And Homer doesn't really do the work either.
So who keeps the plant safe is the real question.
the other employees who aren't as incompetent.
But what's really fun, okay, so Sherry and Terry's dad is Homer's boss, but according to his job description in this episode, he's the technical supervisor. How did he get that job? He didn't go to college.
Nope.
How do you become a technical super? Because when the flashback episode, when he joins the plant, I mean, obviously that was when he was younger, so maybe he got promoted to that position. But how does someone of Homer Simpson's caliber get to be a technical supervisor? And who is he supervising? Although he does have his own cart, he drives around with a clipboard. But it sounds like he does a lot of stupid things at the plant. Like he's their buffoon. Like Smithers calls him the buffoon. So how did he get promoted to become a supervisor?
Maybe he actually worked hard. I mean, obviously in later episodes it's shown that, and even in this episode, because after he gets in the cart, because he's going to look for Bart's group, he crashes it after Bart, distracts him a little bit. And, maybe he worked hard up until they got the kids, and then maybe he
could have been a hard worker, and then the kids turned him into what he was.
Yeah. And as I just mentioned, Homer crashes his cart and gets fired, and he ends up going to Moe's, which, it's Moe's. He's drowning sorrows. And as we mentioned in episode 1, Moe's apron is pink. It is also still pink here.
Perfect. And as you mentioned, for the first time, Bart and Lisa make the prank phone call to Moe's.
Yep.
And so to recreate it, Moe's Cavern. Yeah, we're looking for IP Freely. Hold on, let me check. IP Freely. Is there a IP Freely here?
Come on, IP. One of the most classic gags I think The Simpsons has ever pulled off. It's a shame. It's a shame that Moe never figured, or actually, I could be wrong.
Well, one episode, Bart tells him that he was at 742 Evergreen Terrace because Jimbo Jones was macking on his girl.
But I feel like there was an episode where like Moe is like, oh, if it was Bart pranking me all these years, I wouldn't care. Or like something like that.
There is one. I don't remember which it is, so we'll have to put a pin in that one and come back to it. But yes. But after they hang up, Homer's like, "Are you ever going to catch that guy?" He's like, "Nah, he keeps changing his name." And I'm like, "Keeps changing his name? He never said his name."
Well, I think the joke there is that Moe doesn't understand the concept of the prank phone call.
No, he knows that he's looking for someone in the bar. The IP Freely isn't the guy on the phone.
Yeah,
he's the guy the caller is looking for.
I don't know. Maybe
I don't
maybe
know.
it was just a screw up. Maybe it was just a bad script. Because you're right,
God
he
damn
never
these script
mentions.
writers.
And another thing I noticed, and I'm pretty sure it's like the first 2 seasons, the doors leading out of Moe's are like those Western style swinging doors.
That's so weird.
But like I remember like later, it was either later first season or early second season, he had those doors, but then on the outside he had his normal push door.
So you go in through the push door, and then you go into swinging doors.
So maybe there's like a lobby or something.
Most tavern has a lobby.
But then later seasons, they come through the push door.
Yeah,
So
we'll have
I
to keep an
wonder
eye
if
out for that one.
yeah, it's crazy.
All right, and mentioned before in our previous episode about Homer sleeping on the left and right,
Yeah.
and Homer's trying to find a job. Um, Homer's on the right, Marge is on the left.
Yep.
So we'll have to see when they make that switch. So now Homer's downstairs watching, a Duff commercial.
Yep.
He's like, "Oh, I could use a beer," and he goes to the fridge like, "Beer." Now there's a temporary solution, which seems to be Homer's go-to for any time that he's feeling down in the dumps or happy as can
Well,
be. Or
well, and as we'll see later in like God, it must have been like season 7 or 8 where they do the prohibition episode. They end it with the famous line from Homer: "Alcohol, the cause of and solution to all of life's problems." So clearly, Homer's got this thing where beer is going to solve all of his problems, either temporarily or permanently. But
this one was this one was solving it permanently because then he wrote a suicide note.
That is correct.
And
Which
so
it's very, man, for a show like The Simpsons to do something so early on as suicide note, like, man, that is dark.
Maybe they thought they were
going
to make it to like episode 5 or something. Hey, you know what? We got to try to kill off Homer here. He's just not working out.
But as we see, he writes his suicide note, goes to a bridge. There's another boulder on the bridge. So clearly somebody else tried it and didn't work, and then the family catches up to him. They don't want him to do it, and the car drives by. Homer saves his family, and he goes, somebody should really put a stop sign here, which leads us into Homer becoming the voice of safety of Springfield. He goes to the courthouse or the city hall. Was it the city hall or the courthouse?
It was city hall. But here's the thing. So on the bridge, did you notice on the bridge when he saved his family, he still had the rock tied to him?
Yes.
But yet it was really heavy to carry it to the bridge.
Yeah, that really, I did notice that. That was really odd.
He must have had a feat of strength to save his family.
Oh, man. But so they go to the courthouse, or the courthouse, City Hall. And you see El Barto graffitied again. And as they're sitting in City Hall, they Chief Wiggum makes his first appearance saying, "This is what El Barto looks like," and it's like a grown-up version of Bart.
Yeah, and like Homer's like, "Oh, I don't want to run into this guy on the street."
So
Homer proposes a stop sign, and after giving a speech, he's like, "Okay, well, just tell me." And he's like, "Approved." And so I did write down a few of Homer's other safety signs. There's the dip. Yep. There's please drive friendly.
I don't know how you drive friendly, but
there's speed bump, and then sign ahead. Because if you, honestly.
But here's the thing: you do see those kind of signs, like the stop sign ahead sign, and
yes.
I think I've seen yield ahead, or so like there are signs that warn you about signs coming up. But the fact that it just says sign ahead is like, okay, what kind of sign?
Okay, so I had construction on my road over the last month, and there was detours.
Yeah,
but literally, I swear, in a matter of 2 hours, 14 cars didn't think that, or just assumed, oh, you know what? It says there's going to be a detour, but I don't believe it, and drove and had a U-turn and go all the way around. There should have been a sign that said sign ahead. So you read the next sign that said there's a detour.
Yeah. Well, and also those people are idiots, and they weren't driving friendly.
No, they were not driving friendly.
I really don't know how you drive friendly. And also, so was Jasper in City Hall?
Yeah.
Okay. So there was a lot of first. There was an older couple that we're introduced to that I guess we see later on.
Yep,
That
they were on the they were on the porch saying the Simpson guy is gonna go commit
yeah,
suicide or
yeah.
something.
So
Um,
like,
but
so
then
it's
after all of his signs, he was like, okay, now I'm gonna go. I'm tired. I'm not making much of a difference. We're gonna go take on the Springfield nuclear power plant. Where I like that he's the one that's gonna be the safety guy because he says he's the one that caused
yeah, all
all the
the
problems
problems.
at the power plant. Um,
And he still
but
does. I mean, well, now granted, I haven't watched like the last 5 seasons. Does he still work at the power plant? Like
every once in
I
a
know.
while,
Like there's an episode where where he names off like 20 different other jobs he had. Like I don't know if that's just a gag that the writers kind of fell into, or
yeah,
what have you. But
we'll have to see when he gets his first second job. Because
but
right now he hasn't. He's still a nuclear solely working at the nuclear power plant.
as a safety
So as a safety
inspector,
inspector, which okay, so when he is brought up to Mr. Burns's office for the first time,
yeah,
now it was either a secondary Mr. Burns office, which I don't think it was, but that office looked a third of the size of what we know Mr. Burns's office is.
I think that has to do more with the animation than like animation limitations than anything else. Because I saw your note and I saw, I looked back and I'm like, you know what? It does seem kind of smaller. He doesn't have like the sliding door with all the monitors where he can monitor the employees. I think he did have his stuffed bear though. But
Well, yeah, he had the bear, so the bear was there in the corner.
so I agree that it probably was smaller, but I think that was more due to the animators limitations to make sure they could get everything in there and make it look good. Than, oh, it's a small office, and then they realize later on, like, we should really make his office bigger. I think I personally, like, my opinion is they probably were just like, well, he's the head, his office should be big, but then like they didn't make it as and clearly like the walls in his office in later episodes I believe are red, and this one they're green, so they
Or
clearly
blue, a bluish green color.
bluish green, so clearly, and they've definitely done a lot of redesigns over the years,
Well,
especially
I
with
think that blue color, like the school was that color,
yeah.
the Burns's office was that. A lot of stuff is that
And I think
bluish.
I think the other thing too is if you use certain colors, it was cheaper to do the animation.
Yeah.
So that was probably also part of it, because I'm sure back in 1990, Graining didn't have, I mean, granted it was produced by Fox, but I'm thinking they didn't want to spend a ton of money thinking, oh, we'll just do a season and be done with it, and 30 years later, here we are.
Yep. All right, and so then we close out the episode. Homer's the brand new safety inspector after, at the beginning of the episode, running into apparently a giant tube that set off alarms.
How nobody died because of that is beyond me, but
Yep. All right. So closing thoughts on the episode. It was good. We learned how Homer became the safety inspector. We kind of saw him at his lowest point of his life.
Yeah.
Which is kind of, interesting to see. And basically, it's kind of a new chapter in his life, kind of takes off where we're going. We learned Alberto. We learned where a lot of things in Springfield kind of come from.
Yeah.
We learned that Police Chief Wiggum actually appeared to be a fairly decent police officer.
Yeah.
I mean, he actually did his job. I don't know when he became a lot more, I would say, stupid, I guess. We'll have to kind of look at the progressiveness of Wiggum's character.
So, yeah, how do you rate it?
I'm gonna go with 4.
Wow.
I was kind of thinking 3 for a little bit, but I'm like, you know what? I like Bart's character. I love where Homer goes. I mean, there were a few plot holes only because the plot holes only are there because the Christmas episode was episode 1. And so you're kind of like, your mind is kind of wandering back to episode 1 when you made this. made the jump to episode 3. So
Yeah.
I would still give it a solid 4 for the episode, but maybe 3 for the plot holes.
I think overall, I'm gonna give it a 3. It's the writing is decent. I feel like the story progression was good. I don't really understand the whole, oh, Bart, you're making a noise, I'm going to make you sing a song and be more obnoxious. I mean, that really didn't really sit well. I don't know. It's not one of my personal favorites. I mean, we get to see Blinky for, a couple seconds, you know, Smithers. You get to see a few of the new characters. I just, it was kind of a weird way to get Homer to be the safety inspector of the nuclear power plant. Like, oh yeah, I put a stop sign in. I'm just gonna keep going and going and going. I feel like, I feel like most people, you get a stop sign up, you're feeling pretty good. You're probably done for the day. I mean, I probably would be.
I feel like you shouldn't piss off your boss.
Yeah. And then he gets rehired. Now, don't get me wrong. He had some great leverage.
Yep.
He knows the ins and outs of the nuclear power plant. I'm sure inferring Burns doesn't want that crap to get out.
Yep. Well, and he knows he wasn't the only one to cause problems.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I give it a 3. It's okay. It's not bad. It's still a good episode to what I've compared to over the years. But yeah, I'll give it a 3.
All right. Well, like always, guys, let's close out the episode with our character profile. And since he was such a incremental part of the episode of giving Homer his job, we are going to give a profile to Mr. Burns. So, his occupation. So, we've in the past 2 episodes, the occupation for the character has been pretty short and to the point.
Yeah.
I do love what they give the occupation for Mr. Burns. He's rich and ancient owner of the Springfield nuclear power plant. I guess
he's ancient. He's like 80 years old
and has every disease and isn't going to die. I mean, he almost dies in a few episodes, which we'll get to.
Yeah,
and the Simpsons tend to save his life.
Yep.
So we'll get to that later. And then finally, he's the most powerful man in Springfield.
Well, yeah, because he has all the money.
He has all the money.
Yeah.
And apparently he's a Republican, so that makes him more powerful than everyone else.
Yes.
Next, we got accomplishments. He has lived through 12 recessions. Now, I mean, I can only think of maybe 3, so maybe he's like...
So you gotta but here's the thing: you're not thinking of the recent recession because that's 2008, 2009. This came out in 1990.
Yep.
How many recessions were there between, I would even say, 1990 and 1910? I'm just gonna say he's 80 years old. How many recessions were there in 80 years? Now, granted, Springfield is a fictional place; it doesn't really exist. I mean,
maybe Springfield had the recessions.
Like that's what I gotta go with, because he's 80 years old. If you're looking at, I'm actually kind of curious. If you want to keep going, I'm gonna look this up.
Okay. So he's lived through 12 recessions, 8 panics. I'm assuming those are like war, pandemics.
Oh yeah.
Stuff like that. So that seems pretty plausible. 5 years of McKinley-nomics, which, I mean, if it's going off of the president McKinley, 5 years doesn't, well, I mean, unless the next president did it for 1 year and then got rid of it. That's the only thing I could think of.
So according to the internets, there have been 47 recessions in the United States dating back to the Articles of Confederation. As far as I can tell, the average duration of the 11 recessions between 1945 and 2001 is 10 months, compared to 18 months of recessions between 1919 and 1945, and 22 months for recessions from 1854 and 1919. So I guess there is a possibility that he could have lived through 12 recessions.
All right.
Because if there was 11 between 1945 and 2001, I mean...
That makes sense. That puts him in the ballpark.
Like, I would have to say that's probably there. They actually have dates. They also include panics as part of the recessions.
I mean,
So
not every recession is associated with a
yeah,
panic. So I think the Simpsons got it right on that one.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Well, if you're only counting recessions, but there's also the Great Depression. I mean, yeah, I'll give him 12.
All right. So past disguises. He was Wavy Gravy, which was that his disguise during the monorail episode?
I think so.
Okay.
I don't know. We'll have to look for it.
Yep. And then Jimbo Jones.
Yeah, where did he infiltrate like the high school or something, trying to figure out like what the young kids like?
Yeah.
Forget which episode that. Like I remember the episode, but I don't remember the episode.
All right. Favorite lunch: a pillow of shredded wheat, steamed toast, a dodo egg. And I think Smithers had to tell him that the dodo has been extinct.
Correct. That is correct.
Secret shame: physically weaker than an infant, and we all know that he couldn't steal a candy from Maggie.
Yeah.
Favorite non-monetary wager: Coca-Cola, 1 can of. Now,
see, I don't remember that wager.
You don't remember that wager?
I don't.
Oh, come on! It's the shinning episode where Smithers bets him that the family was going to be dead when they came back to check on him.
Oh, that was the Treehouse of Horror.
That's correct.
Gotcha.
All right, and some miscellaneous stuff. Denture collection includes fangs.
Yep.
Which we all know. Once tried to court Marge.
Yep.
And he once tried to marry Marge's mother.
Yep.
So I feel like he has a thing for blue-haired women.
Probably. I mean, everybody has their type.
Yeah. So that's Mr. Burns for our character profile.
And some say he would be also evil.
Yes, he is evil.
Yeah,
pure evil. All right, guys. So that is episode 3 of The Simpsons Did It. Homer's Odyssey. You can find us on Facebook, The Simpsons Did It, on Instagram, The Simpsons Did It Pod. You can listen to all our episodes, this one, past and future episodes, on Apple, Google Play, Anchor, Spotify, and many other places where podcasts are heard. So go check those out. And until next time, I'm your host, Steven Skolansky.
I'm your co-host, Robert Skolansky.
And The Simpsons Did It.
Shh.